Or you could talk about camouflage. Back in World War I, the shipping lanes of the Allies were being decimated by German U-boats. And so they thought, well, how do we figure this out? We need to we can camouflage our tanks, but we don't know, but boats are such an easy target. What do we do? So they went to the artists, of course. Artists are the ones that know about visual things. So like, hey, Abbott Thayer, we all know his angel paintings. We don't know about him generally as a wartime camouflage expert. But they went to him and they're like, hey, what do we do here? So he and this other Wilkinson fellow came together and said, hey, we should paint. The problem is that through a periscope, these ships are really big in the middle and they're moving across. So we need to fragment the silhouette so that it makes it harder to target. Like we can't fully make a boat disappear on the water, but we can maybe fragment it so that it looks, so it's harder to kind of know where the center of focus is on this thing. And maybe it makes it just a little more confusing when you're trying to make a split-second choice of where to target this torpedo, right? Hard to know if this really worked or not. It became obsolete after radar because radar doesn't care what you paint your ship, and sonar, I should say, with torpedoes and such things. But the point of it is that we're trying to fragment, we're trying to put contrast in ways inside of the silhouette that make it harder to see the silhouette itself, right? So contrast, like there's value here. Value isn't the problem. They're putting value in this painting, different types of value, but they're putting it in higher contrast within the silhouette in a way that makes it harder to then focus on the outside of the silhouette. Does that make sense? So again, camouflage is doing the same thing. We're trying to, we have all these, this big bird we can see, and there's 1, 2, 3 little chicks, 4 that are there as well. They're camouflage. So especially little baby things usually have spots on them and patterns in a way that make them hidden because it's breaking up the contrast of the silhouette, right? So can you see the deer here or the antelope or mountain goats? You got 1, 2, 3. So what they're doing is the top of their body is darker, and you get this in marine life and things too, so that the light hitting them is going to get neutralized, right? So it's going to be a mid-tone. And then underneath them is lighter, so that then the shadow lightens up because of the lighter bottom and goes to a mid-tone, with the idea that they're going to flatten out against whatever a mid-tone surface, right? And, you know, obviously if they turn into shadow, that doesn't happen. But this guy in the light, it's working pretty well. So the idea of neutralizing contrast within a silhouette so that you can define the outside of the silhouette is a really critical part of good painting. That doesn't mean that every silhouette has to feel like it was cut out of paper. Sometimes you want to use this purposefully, but you need to understand this before you can use it judiciously. So here's a couple examples. These are some silhouette examples. I've got some others that I'll show in a little bit. So these were some concept design pieces I did. So purposely, I made her whole silhouette, even in shadow, lighter, and everything around her I pushed darker. This is a person actually, so that that shape would read as a full shape. The same with the little creature there. Same thing here. I pulled the shadow down on the background. I purposely didn't hit this building with light so that this character being hit by light would read as a silhouette against the mid-tone of that background, right? So I'm constantly trying to strengthen silhouettes. Here's an example of a student piece. The student actually did it really clear, and then I kind of messed it up. Of putting contrast in the back equal to that of the character so that it's hard to read the silhouette of that character. Now, sometimes, again, maybe you want to do that if this is a bigger piece and this is a secondary character off to the side and you don't want them to be the focal point. Maybe you pull that contrast closer so that they're less visible. But here I've got this tree with all this stuff going on inside, and I've put this camouflage right behind it with the idea of how often we do this with a sky where we're making really light and dark, like sky and clouds right behind this busy tree. And then we're surprised that it's not really focused, or we can't really tell what the silhouette of the tree is. Or we put a mountain behind that. We're painting the mountain and we see stuff going on, and we put all these kind of light and dark shadows of other trees behind this tree, and you're like, wait, I can't see what that silhouette is. And so we camouflage stuff all the time without realizing we're doing it, and then we're frustrated by the results of it. So much of painting is about being able to manipulate contrast in a way that gives you the focal area that you want and to tell the story you want to tell. And also, how many of us have stared at a sky for a while and then convinced ourselves that there's all sorts of contrast between clouds and sky, right? And then we put that contrast into our painting and we're like, wait, but why doesn't it feel like I'm looking at? And then, because contrast is often judged by context, right? Saying that color is judged by context. So it's by looking at the mountain or the tree that we really see, oh, like the difference between that sky and that cloud really is about a 1-step difference if I squint down at it. And I've made it like a 5-step difference. So